Dispatch Outlook, where we are talking about Hurricane Sandy 1 year later. Now, Sandy brought us a lot of sights we had never seen. At the height of the storm, 7.5 million people were without power. The New York Stock Exchange closed for 2 days, the first time that had happened because of weather since 1888. There were 15 days of gas rationing, and the New York City Fire Department received 10,000 911 calls every half hour. Sandy was born on October 22, 2012, as a small tropical depression in the Caribbean, but she strengthened, and coupled with a high tide and full moon, parts of New York and New Jersey were completely devastated. Now a look ahead to the rebuilding.
67-year-old Elmer Lamberson is a retiree and will never forget the night Superstorm Sandy demolished his home.
It's been unreal. Basically, I stood in the water up to my waist in my house for 3.5 hours, holding the front door closed so the water wouldn't come in.
He moved into this house 40 years ago, right after serving in the Vietnam War, and raised a family of 5 here on a $35,000 salary. Over the past year, he and 220 families have been living in temporary housing apartments in Port Monmouth. Lamberson says after the storm, help didn't come fast enough.
And nobody's given nobody no money yet. Even my neighbor building across the street, he's got to use his retirement fund to build with.
However, across New Jersey, service organizations are working to help families affected by the storm. Nancy Duran, president of Habitat for Humanity, says they raised more than $500,000 in private funds to repair homes.
We have 18 projects going on right now in Union Beach. This is a new home we're building for Elmer, who is so well deserving.
The organization has helped repair and rebuild 55 homes since the storm.
Some homeowners that we're helping are living in trailers on their property, so it's just a blessing to get them back into their homes.
Exactly 1 year since the storm hit, some people are still struggling to rebuild their lives. But it's the compassion of those helping that has given many of these communities the strength to pick up the pieces and carry on.
And let's not forget the 57,000 utility workers who came from 30 states and Canada to get the lights back on, and after 16 days, power was restored to everyone. Now, to discuss the rebuilding efforts, we are joined by Dee Dee Benkie, Diane Concannon from the Red Cross, and psychologist Dr. Bart Rossi. Thanks for being back on here, Dr. Bart. Well, Diane, you're in the front line still. How many people, and I know we don't have an exact number, but in terms of proportions, like of all the thousands of people that needed help, how many people are still not back home?
That is a hard one to get. I can tell you, though, it's good to see people day by day getting back in. When we were responding a year ago, there were thousands in shelters and with nowhere to go. We worked with FEMA on the temporary sheltering assistance program that moved thousands out of shelters and into hotel rooms. And then the Red Cross caseworkers were working one-on-one with families, trying to find out what those families needed to get back in their home. Maybe it was small repairs or furniture if everything was destroyed, and we continued that work.
So the Red Cross services aren't just going out on the scene during the disaster, it's also, just give us a little overview of what you guys have been doing for the past year.
Well, the response was massive and went on for quite some time. Just mobile feeding. We had 6 huge kitchens in New Jersey alone with the Southern Baptists, where massive tents, the Southern Baptist volunteers just cooked all day long with food purchased by Red Cross, and Red Cross vehicles lined up 20, 30 strong throughout the day, just loading up food and then out into neighborhoods to help people with meals.
I want to talk about some of the frustration people are feeling, and of course, Dr. Bart, we want to weigh in on how the rebuilding is making, there's a bit of frustration, I think we can say.
Right, there's a lot of frustration, but you know, I draw a parallel to Mayor Giuliani when he said after 9/11, this will make us stronger, this will make us better. And it's an unfortunate situation, of course, that you have to go through this to get better. But I do think a lot of families and a lot of folks understand what they have to do to move forward in life, and it's a lesson that makes a lot of folks stronger and better. And we get help from certain organizations that make us all realize how dependent we are and how much we need each other. So I think psychologically, it's really a big picture out there when it comes to Sandy.
Well, let's talk about the frustration. And Dee Dee, I think a lot of people have been frustrated, not so much with the the politics of what has happened with Sandy, from FEMA, people not getting money, as we heard. Just talk to me about that.
Well, it's unfortunate that the process, a year later, people still don't have the money they need. That is unacceptable. Anyone who is listening out there, you contact your politician, your member of Congress, your town council member, whoever it takes, your governor. I think Governor Christie's done a good job. New York, not as much. I mean, it just is what it is. I mean, a lot of the folks on Long Island, I mean, they're the ones that had the real problem. They were in tents forever. Some people still don't have their money. And for this fire department, you know, I know it's New Jersey, but for this fire department to still not have what they need and not get the grants, shameful. So we really need to push our elected officials because that's their job. These are the most basic needs.
And a lot of people are calling this, though, the Katrina hangover, basically saying that because of what happened with Katrina, they didn't know where the money was going. Now that is keeping some of the money from coming to New York and New Jersey. Again, go to your politicians, Dee.
Yeah, I mean, go and call, go to their offices. That's what they're there for. Look, Congress is barely doing anything as it is. Their approval rating's way down. At least get this right. At least get the basic needs right of people who can be protected, who have food, who have clothing, who have a house, have something over their head, have the medication, have their needs for their kids. It's unacceptable. So absolutely scream from the rooftops to your politicians. They need to get something right.
Well, it is amazing. Certainly parts of the Jersey Shore. I have family that lost homes, and I think we all were affected that way. But it's amazing that so many homes are still not up there. Diane, where does the Red Cross go in the next year and the next 2 years? Like, where they're still going to be in these areas devastated by Sandy. But what do you focus on now?
Well, we're still working with families one-on-one to try to get them back in their homes, and they are faced with a lot of obstacles, whether it's their insurance money or state aid. But we do continue to work with families one-on-one. We're also doing a lot of Sandy recovery grants to many of the organizations that are in those communities that are doing work, such as we supplied a $2 million grant to Habitat for Humanity for work in New Jersey, and Rebuilding Together for their work in New York and New Jersey. That work goes on, and we have long-term recovery groups in New Jersey in the counties that are affected, and that's a gathering of many nonprofits that work together in that area to help people with their unmet needs.
And Diane, I'm going to share a story about the Red Cross with all of you, because you don't know this story yet. So I was working with a group of students for the last 7 months from the Pascack Valley Learning Center. A bunch of kids said they wanted to do something, so they raised $2,800, gave a check to the Red Cross. It was a wonderful thing, but they said they wanted to do more. So they came up with this idea of putting together a book called Surviving Sandy. Their parents secured funding, and they contacted me to sort of be like the journalist to oversee everything.
Yeah, let's just say Mia's book. It's Mia's book. So congratulations, it's a beautiful book.
It is a beautiful book.
Wonderful.
But what is so wonderful about this book is that it came from the hearts of children, and all the proceeds are being donated to organizations like the Red Cross. So it's certainly it's not just a book to show the history, but also to pay it forward. So talking about paying it forward, certainly a great thing to do for people when they are in this recovery mode. I've heard more and more people say that it was the volunteers who really helped them see through their almost like depression and despair.
True, and I think that, you know, as a psychologist, I always talk about the strategies that people need to put into place to get from here to where they want to go. In this case, after a tragedy like this, you really do have to have the right strategies, and you also need help from folks, and you need to know what you can do, what you can expect over the next 6 months or a year to accomplish your goal, get back to where you want to be. You know, we always talk about becoming the person you want to be. In this case, how do you become what you were before, and then hopefully even better as a result of this?
Give me the top 2 tips that somebody should do if they're listening to this show right now and they're still not where they want to be.
Come up with a plan that has some specific strategies about where you want to be in 6 months or a year. Don't look at it just as a day-by-day situation, although you have to do that to a certain extent, but have a little bit bigger picture out there.
All right, Dr. Bart, thank you so much. Diane Concannon, thank you so much from the Red Cross. Thank you.